Hello everyone and welcome to our digital lesson. Today we're going to be talking about key signatures. We're going to be discussing what they are as well as how they're built and labeled. So without any further ado, let's get started. So what exactly is a key signature? Well, at their most basic, they're just collections of sharps and flats. We have some key signatures that use flats and we have some key signatures that use sharps. Unless you're C major, which you just don't use either. So we're going to start this lesson by discussing sharp key signatures, and then we're going to move on to flat key signatures. But let's just get some general information of these down before we move on to either, okay? So each key signature has a unique amount of sharps and flats within them, and those specific sharps and flats give us their name. So where can we find our key signatures on a piece of music? Our key signature is always going to be located on the right side of our clef. So at the bottom of this slide, we have a couple examples of in treble clef, your key signature next to your treble clef. It would be located in the same spot. If that was a bass clef, you would find it to the right. So it's always going to be to the right side of your clef sign. So let's just backtrack a minute and talk about our major scale. Remember a couple days ago when we talked about our major scale structure and how it was a whole step, half step, whole step, half step structure? Well, we can use that structure to build a major scale off of any note on our keyboard. And I'll give you the hint that the only scale that we can build using that structure that won't have any sharps or flats in it is C major. All the other ones on any note in on the keyboard must have a sharp or a flat in it to maintain our structure. So that's kind of where our key signatures begin to come into the picture, because we have to add our sharps and flats to maintain our major scale structure. So I want you to pause the video here after you've heard your instructions, okay? I want you to go into the description box below this video, and I want you to find the link for OnlinePianist.com and open up that website. Go ahead and locate middle C on the keyboard once you've got the site open, and I'll give you a hint, it has a gray dot on it, and I want you to build a major scale using your major scale structure off of middle C. Once you've done that, I would like you to locate G above middle C and build a major scale using your structure, and I would also like you to find D above middle C and repeat that process, okay? Once you've done that, I'd like you to come back to the video and we can keep talking about key signatures. So what happened with each major scale? Like I said before, I'm sure you noticed that you didn't have to change anything on your C major scale because there's no sharps in it. But what happened with G major? What happened with G major? What did you have to change in your major scale structure from C major to G major, besides your starting note? So I'm sure as you noticed by now, you had to add some sharps to these scales to maintain your structure. You had to raise a couple notes, and you had to incorporate some of the black keys into your major scale instead of just white keys. So, in your G major scale, obviously you started on G, and you went up a whole step to A, and then a whole step to B. You found your half step, and you went up to C, and then you went up to D with another whole step. D to E is your whole step. But then, in order to create that whole step, that last whole step that you needed, you had to raise that F up to an F sharp to make it a whole step, which then also gave you the half step up to G. So that's how you maintained your structure. You raised that F up and made it F sharp instead of F natural. And so then let's look at D major. You started on D, you went up a whole step to E, and again you had to raise your F sharp to make it a whole step from E to F, or E to F sharp, I should say, sorry. And then you had to create the half step between F sharp to G, and then a whole step between G to A, and then another whole step between A to B. You had to create another whole step, so you had to raise that C up to C sharp. There you go, there's our second accidental in here. And then that also created the half step between C sharp and D. And so I'm sure by now you're starting to wonder, which sharps go in which keys, and why? Well, they're not random. There is a specific order to them. So let's discuss that real quick. So, as I'm sure you're well aware of by now, we have to add certain sharps to certain keys to maintain our major scale structure. And these sharps, like I said before, are not random. There is a very specific order to them. Our order of sharps is F, C, G, D, A, E, and B. And each time we add a new sharp to a key, it has to follow this order. So let's talk about how we add them, right? So they're kind of cumulative. So our first one would be F, right? If we only have one key signature or one sharp in our key signature, it's always going to be F. If we have two sharps in our key signature, they're going to be F sharp and C sharp. So following this kind of logic, if we had three sharps in a key signature, which sharps do you think they would be? If you're thinking F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, you're absolutely correct. And I'm sure you're also now beginning to wonder, how do we know what key we're in just based off the sharps? Is it possible to know what key we're in based off the sharps? Do we have to memorize the number for each key signature? Absolutely not. That would be crazy. I'm sure you'll start to get a little bit more familiar with them the more you see them, but no, you do not have to memorize these and know them cold. There are shortcuts. So let's talk about the sharp shortcut. What you're going to do, and there's an example in this corner on the slide, you're going to find your last sharp. So in this key signature, our last sharp is C. And you're going to take that C sharp and you're going to move a half step up. So what's a half step up from C sharp? If you're yelling at the screen, D, of course, obviously it's D, then you're right. So that would be your key signature. So once again, find your last sharp. Our last sharp is C sharp. You move up a half step. That's your key signature. So here's some more examples. So as we see here, F is our only sharp, and we move a half step up and we get G. So our key signature is G major. And just like you did with your scale, you found that F sharp is the only sharp in that scale. So, and again, here's D, here's our D major. So again, here's C sharp, you move up a half step, there's D major. So our key signature is D major when we have two sharps. And then let's look at this last one. Here, our last key signature, or our last sharp, I should say, is G. And so we move a half step up from G sharp, and we get A. So A major is our key signature. Okay, so here I would like you to pause the video again once I've told you your instructions. Okay, so I need you to go to the description box below this video again and find the link to the C major and sharp key signatures Kahoot game. So what you're going to do is you're going to open this up. Once it's all loaded, you're going to start the game, and you're going to use your shortcut for sharp key signatures that we've discussed to answer the questions. And once you're done, come back to the video and we'll start talking about flat key signatures. So now that we've talked about sharp keys, let's go ahead and talk about flat keys. And they're remarkably similar to sharp keys. There's very few differences. So, just like with sharp keys, we can add flats to scales to maintain our major scale structure. And there's also an order of flats, just like there is an order of sharps. And if you're looking at this and it looks pretty familiar to you, it's because it's pretty much the same, except with the sharp key signatures, we would read it F to B, right? Here we're going to start at B and move down to F. So our order of flats is B, E, A, D, G, C, and F. So it's the same thing as the order of sharps, but it's just backwards. And if you notice down here, there's a nice little sentence. So if you read it for flats, it goes battle ends and down goes Charles's father. Or if you read it for sharps, it would go Father Charles goes down and ends battle. So if that helps you to remember the order, go ahead and use that. Or if you want to come up with your own little sentence, that also works. Okay, so now that we've talked about flat keys, I want you to go back to OnlinePianist.com. I want you to find middle C again. Remember, it's the note with the gray dot on it. And then I would like you to find F above that middle C. Go ahead and use your major scale structure to build a major scale off of F. And remember, we want flats. We don't want sharps. So if you find a note that you have to raise, think about it as a flat instead of a sharp, okay? And then I want you to repeat that process starting on B flat. And then we're going to talk about what changed, okay? So let's talk about what changed, okay? So you started on F, right? What note did you have to change in your F major scale? You went up a whole step from F to G, and then a whole step up to A, but then you needed a half step, right? And I'm sure it was very tempting to write A sharp, right? But because we're in a flat key, we want to make sure that we write B flat because that's its enharmonic spelling, so it's the same pitch, it's just written different because we're in a flat key, right? So then that gives your half step, and then you get a whole step between B flat and C, and then a whole step between C and D, and then a whole step between D and E, and a half step between E and F, and that's your F major scale. So then let's go over to B flat over here, right? You start on B flat, you get a whole step up to C, a whole step up to D, but then you need that half step, so what did you have to change? You had to change the E, and again, I'm sure it was very tempting to write this as D sharp, but again, it's a flat key, and so we want to use its enharmonic flat spelling of E flat. So that gives your half step. So once you have that half step, you can move up a whole step to F, and then a whole step to G, and then a whole step to A, and then another half step up to B flat. So that's B flat major. So just like with sharp keys, you don't have to memorize these flat keys. There is a shortcut to determine them. You do not have to try and recognize them based solely off the number of flats that are in them. That would be horrendous. But again, I'm sure you'll start to recognize them as you use them more. So let's talk about this shortcut, okay? So this is for flat keys only. It's different from the shortcut for sharp keys. It's not the same. So what you're going to do is you're going to locate your second to last flat. So as you can see here, our second to last flat is B flat right here. That's our key signature. And if you think back to that scale that we just looked at, when you made your B flat major scale, your flats that you had to use were B flat and E flat. So let's look at a couple more examples so you can get comfortable with this shortcut. Okay, so let's just go through some more examples of this so you can get a little bit more comfortable with this shortcut, okay? So if we look at our first example, that second to last flat is what? It's B flat. So B flat is our key signature. When we look at our middle example, E flat is our second to last flat, and so E flat is our major key signature. And at that last one, A flat is the second to last flat, so A flat is our key signature. So before we move on, let's just take a second and talk about F major because it's kind of funky. It defies our second to last flat rule because it only has one flat in its key signature. So the best way that I can think of to remember F is to relate it to the F major scale. So think back to when you built your F major scale, you had to add a B flat to it, right, to maintain that major scale structure. So that's why F has a B flat in it. It's kind of weird, it's kind of funky, it doesn't really fit into the rule, but just try to think of your major scale and I think you'll remember it. Okay, I'm going to ask you to pause the video in just a second. So first, go to the description box below and I want you to find the link for the C major and flat key signatures Kahoot. Make sure that it's the C major and flat key signatures one, not the sharp key signatures, okay? And I want you to use the shortcut that we've just discussed to answer the questions, okay? And then once you've answered all your questions, come back to the video and we're going to go over your assignment, okay? Okay, so now that you're finished up with your Kahoot, let's talk about your assignment, okay? And this assignment is in two parts. The first part is going to be on Quizlet.com and the second part is going to be found on musictheory.net. The links for both of these are in the description box below, so go ahead and open those, okay? Okay, so let's talk about the first part on Quizlet. I want you to open up that Quizlet.com link below, and I want you to find this Learn option here, okay? I want you to go through this at least once, but it's going to benefit you to do it a couple times. And the Learn option is really cool because it's going to give you these flashcards, but you're going to be able to answer them in different ways. It's going to give it to you in different methods, okay? So sometimes it's going to give you a multiple choice question, sometimes it's going to give you a question where you have to type the answer, and sometimes it'll just appear as an electronic flashcard, okay? And I believe it'll give you the question, each question 2 times, so you can really get familiar with it. And again, you only have to do this once, but it would definitely benefit you to do it a few times. This portion of the assignment is not graded. This is truly for your benefit. So this is part 2 of your assignment, and this part is graded. You're going to click on the musictheory.net link in the description below, and this link is going to lead you to the exercise portion of their website. So you're going to be faced with something similar to this image, okay? You're going to be given a key signature, and then you're going to be given letters, and you have to click the right letter for your key signature. And it's all major. I have it set up so it will only give you major key signatures. So I want you to answer at least 15 of these questions. Again, it would be great if you did more. And the website will keep track of your questions up here. So it'll give you like 1 out of 1, you know, once you've done 1, it'll go 2 out of 2. It'll only count the correct ones, okay? So if you got 3 right out of 5, it would say 3 out of 5, okay? And then it'll give your percentage grade. I don't care what your percentage grade is for your assignment. I just want you to answer these questions. You'll get full credit no matter what, as long as you answer 15 questions. Once you've completed your questions, I want you to send me your progress report in an email. And let's go over how to send me your progress report. So once you finish your questions, you're gonna go up into the right-hand corner and find these 3 dots. Click on those 3 dots, and then find this show your progress report, okay? So click on that, and then you're gonna type your name here, and then sign the report. You'll click on that, okay? And this says 0 because I hadn't answered anything at that point when I took these screenshots. But you'll have your scores there, okay? And so then once you hit sign report, it's going to give you this verification code, okay? And I want you to click copy link, okay? And so that'll copy it. And then once you've copied it, I want you to open up your email, open up an email to me, copy the link or paste the link into that email, and just title your email progress report from key signature assignment or something like that, okay? And then send that to me. And again, you'll get full credit no matter what. Just complete 15 questions. And that is all I have for you today. And I really hope you enjoyed this lesson and have a great time figuring out key signatures. Have a great day. Bye-bye.